The supervillain team-up is a strange old concept, isn't it? I mean, usually villains roll out all hands solo because of the fact that their common ambition of world conquest usually causes conflict when not everyone wants to kneel to just one person in the room. It's like they should try and iron out this at the very beginning, right? Well, regardless of this issue, across all of the multiverses, there have been numerous supervillain supergroups that have been brought together for the sole reason of kicking ass. Sometimes it'll be a single hero that the group wants to put to task, other times it's the domination of an entire nation. But one thing is clear, and that's that if these villains are teaming up, there's gonna be a huge mess to clear up after them. And so we got thinking, which are the epitome of evil? Which are the groups that go the distance when it comes to slamming some superheroes? Well, let's find out together, as I'm Jules, the resident evil doer here from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 deadliest supervillain teams. Number 10. Sinister Six. Of the various assorted Marvel supervillain teams, the Sinister Six are likely the most well-known, largely because of just how many big storylines they've had as Spider-Man's nemesis. The original Sinister Six was initially comprised of Electro, Mysterio, Kraven the Hunter, Sandman, and the Vulture, all led by Dr. Octopus to try and take Peter Parker down. Each villain represented a different threat to Spidey, and to be honest, they came pretty close to seeing the end of our young hero. Across the years, the team has seen many alterations in its lineup, but it's always comprised of some of Marvel's villainous heavy hitters, such as Tombstone and the Lizard. And as such, it would be difficult not to consider them a major threat. Although they are mostly only out to wreck the world's favourite web-slinger, the Sinister Six have also turned their hand to world domination, robberies, and good old-fashioned hostage-taking to really round out their threat level. Number 9. Sons of the Serpent. The Sons of the Serpent are a particularly unpleasant group of supervillains, initially formed in order to commit violent hate crimes in order to, air quotes, divide America, which is as pleasant as it sounds. The group would go through several different formations over the years, all of which would see them led by some sort of rich maniac willing to spend their insane amount of wealth on weird occult things and systematic oppression, which are also coincidentally some of the worst things you could ever spend your millions on, only narrowly beaten out by Blockbuster shares. Yes, that's a reference for my oldies out there. One of the most unnerving parts about the team outside of their horrible intentions is that their plots vary from forcing Daredevil to out his true identity to the public, to kidnapping people to use as test subjects for evil experiments, and it all means that while their goal is clear, their means are unpredictable. And that causes it to be hard to identify who's behind the latest wave of terror until it's almost too late. Though they aren't as powerful as, say, the Masters of Evil, the mystery that surrounds the Serpent makes them just as deadly, as without warning they will descend and throw you and the rest of the world into a pit of vipers of their own creation. Number 8. The HELLFIRE Club. Though filled with powerful characters such as Emma Frost, the real reason the HELLFIRE Club is so dangerous isn't actually to do with the strength of their roster, but rather the clever way they operate. Because to many, the HELLFIRE Club isn't considered an evil organization, but rather a social club for members of the elite to mingle. Indeed, even incredibly intelligent characters like Norman Osborn and Tony Stark were members of the club without any kind of awareness of its secret nefarious dealings, due to them not being members of the inner circle. And when you've managed to pull one over Normie and Big Tome, that's a pretty big achievement. Now, said inner circle is where the more underhanded practices of the club were organised between the actual supervillains of the team, who would masterfully conceal their dealings from the rest of the world. While many heroes were aware of the true dark nature of the HELLFIRE Club, they were also powerless against it, as while they could beat individual members of the team, they'd never be able to truly close it entirely. Number 7. Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom started out as a team that wasn't all that intimidating to begin with, but then suddenly the original team was replaced with Lex Luthor, the Joker, Sinestro, and many other legitimately terrifying villains instead, and suddenly LOD was bumping up the card from vaguely threatening to will definitely end the world at some point in their comic run. Given that each individual member of the Legion of Doom would total a planet in about a week of semi-intense villain work, it goes almost without saying that the Legion of Doom is one of the most deadly supervillain groups to date, even if they are often likely to kill one another as they are the heroes they oppose. Number 6. Injustice League. Any list about major supervillain teams that doesn't include the Injustice League may as well have a gaping hole in the middle of it, because this team is basically the trade union of DC's supervillain world. The Injustice League has long recruited the lion's share of the universe's most powerful and influential villains, and had them team up to provide threats that even the Justice League have occasionally needed outside help with. And trust me, there is nothing more worrying than the likes of Batman and Superman saying, "Yeah, we might need a hand with this." It's almost a rite of passage for a supervillain who has gained notoriety to join the Injustice League, and there's something bizarrely wonderful about that. Almost like the team is the official who's who of bad guys at any given time. Unfortunately, the team hasn't been used since Lex Luthor became a hero in the 2014 Justice League comic, but we can always hold out hope that one of DC's most impressive and deadly villain teams will return sometime soon. Number 5. The Crime Syndicate of America. Given the Crime Syndicate first properly showed up in DC by absolutely trouncing the Justice League, there are few people who consider this group to be a pushover. In fact, with that sort of debut, they are easily one of the most threatening groups out there. Made up out of a version of the Justice League who came from an alternate dimension, the Crime Syndicate of America is a direct problem for the League themselves, as they're forced to come up against villains who not only have incredibly strong powers, but also incredibly strong powers that almost directly mirror the hero's own. This means that in order to beat them, they have to exploit their own weaknesses. Though the Justice League do eventually overcome their evil doppelgangers, it's made transparent that had the battle been a simple case of strength, both teams were completely even, marking this strange bunch of villains as some of DC's deadliest yet. Number 4. Brotherhood of Mutants. As a rule, if a group in a comic has the word Brotherhood in it, the chances are that it's going to be up to no good. This golden comic rule is largely the fault of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, a team of superpowered villains led by Magneto, who united them due to their shared trait of being understandably furious at the way that they were being treated because of their mutations. What would be less understandable, however, is the way that the Brotherhood would decide to deal with said treatment, in that their solution was to wipe out humanity itself. But this would bring flocks of upset and alienated mutants to the team, all wishing to lash out at those who had ostracized them, making the Brotherhood of Mutants dangerous both in the powers of those within it and in the destructive ideology it promoted. Number 3. The Dark Knights. Although the idea of an evil Batman or Superman is one that is possibly overused, there is one exception to this saturation: the Dark Knights. The Knights are comprised of versions of Batman from different universes, all showing different ways the hero's life could have gone terribly wrong. All of these revolve around other members of the Justice League too, meaning that the team is also sort of a corrupted version of DC's strongest heroes at the same time. Led by Barbatos, the being whose purpose it is to literally consume universes, the Dark Knights have destroyed countless universes thus far, and though Dark Knight Metal saw them stopped, you can't help but think this is only a temporary setback, given that every murdered member can be replaced with a theoretically limitless supply of evil Batmen. And if none of this convinced you, then one of the team is literally named the Murder Machine, and he is somehow one of the least dangerous members of the entire roster. Number 2. The Cabal. The Cabal, also known as the Dark Illuminati, was made to directly oppose the Marvel Illuminati that had formed, comprised of the world's most powerful and authoritative superheroes. As such, the Cabal is the supervillain equivalent, with Doctor Doom, Emma Frost, Loki, Namor, and a lesser-known but equally threatening villain known as the Hood. The team are capable of just about anything, although unfortunately their time for nefarious shenanigans was rather short-lived, as their leader Osborn had a full-scale breakdown that saw him placed in a high-security penitentiary. Mercifully, in this short amount of time, the group does gain the use of the Void, which is one of the most powerful entities in the entire Marvel universe, so at least their short run was an impressive one. And the Cabal only gets more intimidating with its second iteration, which swaps out all of the previous villains for Namor, Thanos, and the rest of the Mad Titans Black Order, meaning the group goes from a series of villains who could potentially destroy planets if they wanted, to a series of villains who already had. And number 1, the Black Lantern Corps. When a supervillain team is comprised only of dead beings, all revived in order to follow the orders of a Lord of the Unliving who desires that, well, everything is dead, you know that you're in for a wild ride. And the Black Lantern Corps, led by Necron, who is also unkillable and the ruler of one of DC's various afterlives, are nothing if not a wild ride. Terrifying in their every encounter, the team also gets some extra awful bonus points in that reviving dead characters for the army generally brings back a lot of heroes' loved ones, which is naturally incredibly traumatic when said good guy is confronted by the rotting friend or romantic partner. Without the interference of the equally powerful life-orientated White Lanterns, the universe would have been neatly wiped out by Necron and his zombie party, with seemingly little effort, safely placing the Black Lantern Corps amongst the annals of supervillain teams that you definitely would never want to meet. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter. And if you're in the mood for doing something a bit different, a little bit extra, being a super-powered superhero, then why not check out my board game channel, which is called Live and Let's Dice. It's basically just where I play board games with friends after work. I play a lot of Warhammer at the moment, if you're into that sort of thing. And I'll speak to you soon.